Welcome to Equip Daily Bible Studies. I'm your host, Brad DuFault, and we have been looking at Jesus' famous teaching on the hill, and we are now to Matthew 7, where Jesus says, "Do not judge." Don't judge me because I loved The Last Jedi when everyone else hated it. Don't judge me because my iPod is 20 years old. We quote this all the time, where Jesus says, "Do not judge, or you will be judged." But do we know what he means? Go ahead and turn to Matthew 7, verses 1 to 6, or click the link in the description if you don't have a Bible. Pause and read. In verse 1, Jesus says, "Do not judge." And then in verse 6, he says people are acting like pigs. Doesn't that seem a little judgmental? Well, it turns out there's actually two different ways to judge. One is bad and one is good. Starting with the bad one, Jesus says, "Do not judge others." If you judge them in this way, then the same judgment will be used against you. He's saying that other people will treat you the same way that you treat them, and he's saying that God will look at what you are doing as evil, which is funny because a lot of times when we judge other people, it's because of something bad they're doing. But when we do it, we're also doing something bad too. What is this bad kind of judgment? It's the kind that says that person is bad and should be rejected. That is not cool. We should not reject people for things that they do or things about them. God is not at all that way. Jesus' enemies, you know what they called him? They called him a friend of sinners. They couldn't stand that about him, how much he loved sinners. God is so extreme about this point, about loving people who do wrong. This is what it says in Romans 5, verse 10. It says, "Our friendship with God was restored." That means it was brought back. We get to be friends with God again. How? By the death of his Son, while we were still his enemies. We were Jesus' enemies. We had turned against God when he decided to die for us so we could be forgiven. That's the furthest away you can get from rejecting someone because they're bad. Next, Jesus talks about a friend with a speck in their eye. A speck is just a little tiny piece of something. So they got like a piece of sawdust. Jesus is talking about when your friend has a problem in their life. But he says, but you have a plank in your eye. You ever hear walk the plank? That just means a big giant piece of wood. So your friend has a little speck, but you've got this big giant thing sticking out of your eye, and Jesus is saying, don't be like, let me help you with that, buddy. So the picture is they have a little problem in their life, but you have a really big problem in your life. And please notice what Jesus does not say. He doesn't say, oh, don't worry about your friend with the speck in their eye, because you have problems too. You shouldn't even think about their problems. What does he say? He says we should remove the plank from our eye. He says deal with the issue in your life and then help your friend with the problem in their life. So yes, deal with your issues first, but it's still good to recognize and do something for your friend that has the speck in their eye. But if we're going to do that, then we need the good kind of judgment. And that is this. Instead of saying that person is bad and should be rejected, you're saying that action is bad and should be rejected. There's a problem there and it's not good, and I should recognize it and I should try to help them solve it. If my friend is doing something they shouldn't, I should let them know what God's word says about it. I should listen to their struggles. I should encourage them. I should be a good friend to them. But if I want to do any of that stuff, then first I need to be able to see what's in their life and recognize that it is bad. And that is the good kind of judgment. You see the action and say that's bad and should be rejected. Some people think when Jesus says do not judge, you're saying you should never tell me that I'm doing something wrong. That's clearly not what Jesus meant at all. You can love and accept someone and still look at what they do and say that is bad and should be rejected. Just make sure you actually do the part where you love and accept them and do good to that person. But what if I see something wrong in someone's life and they don't want my help? Well, then don't give the help. That's Jesus' point about the pig. He says, imagine trying to put this like pearl necklace around a pig's gigantic head, right? It's just going to shake it off and then it's going to come attack you. That's crazy. The pig can't appreciate the treasure that you're giving it. You see what Jesus is getting at? Sometimes when you try to help someone, they will stomp on your words and attack you. Maybe that's happened to you. If you're in that situation where someone really doesn't want your help, it's best just to back off. Don't try to force someone to change their ways. Let's bring it all together. We have bad judging and we have good judging. Bad judging says that person is bad and should be rejected. Whereas good judging says that action is bad and should be rejected. And here's how I can help. But there's more we could learn from the whole plank in your eye thing, and that is about how to handle conflict. We will talk about that next time. So until then, be strong in grace.